So today we are going to look at how we to verify that the assumption, because what you've made now in your program assessments are assumptions, right? And those assumptions need to be verified. First of all, you assumed that those people, the target markets you say you have, is actually interested in the problem, right? That was an assumption, and you need to test that assumption. Then you assumed what their problem is, because the truth is, until you ask someone what their problem is, you would never know. And the fact is that a lot of people see other people and assume that they know their problem, but they don't. And we see this every time. We see it in government, where government provides, try to solve a problem by providing one kind of solution, and then, alas, the people don't buy the solution because it's not even the problem. They don't relate with that solution. So that is why, okay, so for instance, you may want to, I think there was this interesting event that happened in Nigeria, actually. So I think everybody knows who Bill Gates is. So Bill Gates wanted to contribute to fighting malaria in Nigeria, and he donated a lot of nets. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars, buying and distributing mosquito nets, because of course, mosquito nets are actually really useful, in weeding off mosquitoes, and therefore, reducing the burden of malaria. So when he bought all these nets and then he shared it to those communities, guess what? Nobody used it. And when I say nobody, I don't mean absolutely nobody. Of course, some people used it, but the number of people that used it was so small that the project have been considered to have flopped. Now, what were the people doing with the mosquito nets? Well, it turned out that some people were converting it to fishing nets. So they will use the mosquito nets and convert it to fishing nets, and then even sell their own mosquito nets as fishing nets. And that was how they were using it. And because they were using it as fishing nets, these mosquito nets, have a lot of chemicals embedded in it. It started, polluting the waters and killing the fish and all of that. So Bill Gates tried to solve a problem, and in trying to solve a problem, he created a new problem, and still didn't solve the problem he set out to solve, because they hadn't tried to understand the user that they were building for. And then, of course, apart from that, there was also the part of the user experience in using that the mosquito nets, right? So a lot of people complain that when they put the mosquito nets, it's very hot, the breeze doesn't come through and all of that. So basically, people had a lot of problem with that solution. So something that should have been a really great solution, or was designed to be a great solution, turned out being a very poor solution, because the locals, the people that were supposed to use it, were not, were not put into the process of designing that solution. So that is part of the things that we are trying to avoid by research. Right. Let me start the presentation, and then we'll have that conversation. Right. So today's class is essentially empathy, a continuation, and of course, ways in which we empathize with our users. Please, by the show of hear me, because I'm getting a warning that my network is a bit poor. Can you still hear me? Oh, by the way, you can always use the chat. Still available. You show me your hands if you can. Hello, guys. Can you hear me now? Please give me a reaction. Raise your hands. Can you hear me? Um, please, Anibia, what was the last? When did you guys lose me so that I know exactly where I'm coming from? When did you guys lose me?
The last thing I heard was when you asked if we can still hear you because your network was giving you a warning.
All right, okay. Okay. I think that was at that time there. Right, let me share my screen. Okay, I'm going to keep you as my co-pilot so that whenever I ask a question, about feedback, you give it. Is that okay?
It's okay.
All right, great. Okay, so empathy, continue. Right, so in this class, we're going to talk about bias. Somebody was asking what bias is. We're going to talk about it today. And then we're going to talk about user interviews. We'll talk about planning it, selecting a sample, finding participants, conducting interviews, and documenting your interviews. Right, bias. What is bias? So, can I hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Yes, all right. So, one thing our brain does as humans, right, is that it tries to create shortcuts in order to understand the world and make sense of the world. And that is how our brains have developed over time. Evolutionarily, it has kept our ancestors alive and it is still keeping us alive today. So what that means is people make a lot of assumptions, right? And when you're talking of surviving, Can you guys, Anibias, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Someone is saying they can't hear me properly. Okay, so when we're talking of surviving in the wild, right? That is, a good thing that we jump into conclusions, because if, for instance, you jump into conclusion that something is a lion, if it turns out being a lion, that's jumping into conclusions have saved you. But if it turns out that that thing is not a lion, yeah, I mean, you don't lose anything. It's just another day that you jumped into conclusions and nothing, and it wasn't that. But if you were not someone that jumps into conclusion a lot, right? If something is actually a lion and then you didn't jump into conclusion that it's a lion, and then it turns out to be a lion, you are dead, right? So that jumping into conclusion, even when you're wrong or right, is part of the things that have kept us alive, and is something that is in every one of us, right? Every one of us, has a way of jumping into conclusion, has a bias, basically. And because of that, every designer must have to be aware of their propensity to having a bias, and find a way to combat those biases. So it's not a question of whether or not we have biases. It's a question of, yes, we have biases. What biases do we have at this point? And how can we ensure that we combat the bias? One bias I can tell you, I mean, you guys were part of the group. You are part of the WhatsApp group, and you've seen the conversations that we have there, during this problem session. You can see that even before we talk about solutions, there are some people who already have solutions in their mind, right? And because they have a solution in their mind, all their answers tend to be targeted towards that one solution, right? So there was this case where someone wanted to make a VR solution for elderly patients who needed physiotherapy, right? In rural areas, that were cut off from access to physiotherapy. Now, all the questions I asked them, right, or most of the questions I asked them, one way or the other, they tried to divert that question towards the VR, because that VR is what they really want to do. So they are trying to twist and turn every situation to fit that VR, or virtual reality, because that is really what they want to do. So the fact is that every designer has a bias, right? And if you want to be a good designer, you must have to learn to be aware of this bias and try to fight against it. When earlier this week, I told you guys to fall in love with a problem, right? So that problem you guys want to solve, fall in love with it. Fall in love with the problem, but never get attached to any solution, right? Because that one solution that you have may not work. And if it doesn't work, if that solution is not a good solution, you should find it very easy to dump that solution and jump onto another solution, but remaining focused on the problem. So just remain focused on the problem, remain faithful to the problem, but be open to any solution that helps you tackle that problem. So what matters is the problem, not really that solution that you have. So if it turns out that your thing can be solved without a VR headset, guess what? I mean, do it without VR headset. But the fact is, you must solve that problem, because that problem is what you are really obsessed about, not the solution, but the problem. And in order to do this successfully, you must have to tackle your biases. Now, part of the biases you're going to face, when you are doing your research, any research, any user research, actually, whether it's foundational research or, design research, or even post-launch, is something that is called framing effect, right? So framing effect is a bias that occurs, but not in you now, but in your user, in the person that you are researching, when you frame that question in a certain way. Of course, the bias is also in you to frame it that way. I'll give you an example. So let's say you design this very wonderful solution, right? Or that solution is supposed to be like an improved button, right? An improved button for your app, right? And then and then you need to sorry, give me a second. Give me a second, please. Sorry, someone needed my attention. Okay, so so let's say you designed this very wonderful button for your app or for your app, and maybe it's a different button than was in the app the last time. Am I still audible, Annie? Yet?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
So, and then you wanted to find out from users whether this button is working for them, right? Now, look at these two questions. Question number one: do you like or dislike the improved layout of these buttons? Question number two: explain how you feel about the layout of these buttons. I'm going to call up for somebody to give us an answer. Okay, Mayowa, is your hand really up? Okay, Mayowa, let me allow you to talk. You can talk now. Mayowa Makinde, you can talk. Right, Mayowa is not talking. Okay, I want to ask.
My hand was raised when you were asking if we could hear you. So.
Okay.
That was when my hand was raised.
All right, no wala. All right, please, can anyone look at these two questions and tell us what is wrong with any of them? Like if which one they prefer and why? Can anyone raise by the raise of hands? Can anyone tell us which of these two questions? All right, Anibet, I'm not going to ask you. You're my co-pilot. Peace, I'm allowing Peace to talk. Please go ahead and talk now. Unmute yourself and talk.
Good morning. The first question is, do you like or dislike the improved layout of this button? So it's just like it's a control index. So the user would either have to say yes or no, I think. Then the other one allows for them to be able to they'll be able to explain maybe what they don't like or what they like about the button.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. That's actually a very good one. All right. Samuel. Samuel, was your hand up? Okay, allowed to talk. Please, you can put your hand down now. So Samuel, you can talk now.
Okay. Hello, can you?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so the first one, or leading the either say yes or.
Okay. Okay.
But the second one, you're giving them room to
explain, right?
Exactly.
Is that the only thing? Is that the only problem you have with the two? Is that the only problem you have?
With the two questions, yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Ojo Achele, you can talk now. Ojo Achele, or no, you can talk now.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So my I have would be that the first question, you're already asking them if they're so they're not going to give an accurate response to what you need, because they will feel like, okay, said the button was already improved. So they'll try to tilt the answer.
Perfect. 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 Thank you very much. Right. So you see, because you've already said that the button is improved, you've already exposed your bias to your user, right? Of course, you can say the second one gives the user room to talk, right? But the first one, you can be maybe you are collecting quantitative, answers, and quantitative is a like or dislike. You can do the math there. Is a quantitative question, while the second one is a qualitative question. But beyond that, what is more, outrageous about the first one is that you're already telling the user that the button is improved, right? So when you are telling the user that the button is improved, well, guess what? They are not going to say that the improved button is worse, right? So, but that way you cannot get the correct answer because you've already planted a bias in the user's mind. Right. Another kind of bias is what we call the bandwagon effect, right? So the bandwagon effect mostly happens when you are doing like a group interview or a focus group, interview. And because of that, when maybe one person says they like a certain thing, everybody is going to say that they like that thing. Or when maybe everybody's saying that they like blue, they like blue, they like blue, but there was one of them who actually liked pink, but because every other person is saying blue, I like blue now because blue is more manly, the guy that like pink is no longer going to come out and say they like pink. They're just going to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh yes, I like blue as well, right? So that's bandwagon effect. You should also avoid a specific language because you need to be aware of what we call a confirmation bias. Now, confirmation bias happens when you already have an answer that you want. So basically, you want the users to like VR, virtual reality, as a solution. So instead of asking them open questions so that they're going to give you an answer of yes or no, or give you the right answer that they actually have in their mind, you're just going to be pushing them towards that virtual reality one. You're asking them questions that will be pushing them towards it, or just selecting only the answers that say yes, that they like virtual reality, and neglecting the ones that say they don't like virtual reality, because you want to confirm a particular bias that you already have in your mind. So that's confirmation bias. So it's also things you need to avoid. You also need to avoid guiding, over-guiding your users, right? So of course, your users can ask you what is the meaning of words, and you can explain what words mean and stuff like that. But you don't want to over-explain things, because even the fact that they don't understand some things is actually a data point, right? So if, for instance, now you are asking 60-year-old people, if they would like what they think about virtual reality as a solution, and someone is asking you what is virtual reality, you understand, you should already know that, man, I don't, maybe this solution is not the best, if everyone of them is asking you what virtual reality is, right? It probably means that it's not the best solution for them, because it becomes a data point that they don't know what a virtual reality is. So you also need to avoid over guiding your users. Like, everything is a data point. And there's something called false consensus, when you assume automatically that your users are thinking the same way you are thinking. So because you believe that virtual reality is a good solution, you start feeling a certain way when someone is telling you that it doesn't work for them, and then you try then maybe you start trying to ask, okay, why doesn't it work for you? You say, I don't even know what that is. You say, why? Now go and learn it, go and Google it. So you're trying to push the user to consent, like to have a false consensus about the issue. So you have to allow the users to, follow their own thought patterns about the product without interrupting them. So when you are interviewing a user and they're expressing themselves, you allow them to express themselves, allow them to narrate, allow them to say you are there to hear them, not to educate them, right? I tell this to my team all the time, that when you are going even to do user research, right? And a lot of times you find yourself in a situation where, because the company no to get money like that, right? We kind of combined a lot of things sometimes. So you like trying to save money, right? So you combine market research or marketing and user research at the same time, right? So for instance, we are going to meet a new potential customer, and then that is a marketing move, right? Going to meet a new potential customer is a marketing move, but you also want to research, the kind of things that they are going to need, and if your product is going to also work for them, and the kind of problem that they have, which is in a way a user research, right? So what I always tell people is that when you find yourself in that situation, do the user research first, right? Because when you are doing the user research, your customer doesn't know what your product is. They don't know what agenda you came there with, so they will give you their honest to God opinion. But when you do your marketing first, you've exposed your buyers, right? You've exposed that, okay, this is the problem I'm solving, this is the solution I have. So that when you're not interviewing your user, you can't really know, whether they really like that or not. And I've actually, had this situation before when ahead of me, I would say, damn Lagos traffic, because I was late to that event, right? So the marketer had already spoken to the user before I was able to meet the user, or the potential customer before I was able to meet the potential customer. So what happened was that when I was doing the interview, I was seeing that their mind was already corrupted by all the marketing, right? So they were basically literally spewing the results that we came to sell to them anyway, right? So that research was not valuable. It's not a research I could use. I couldn't use anything out of it because the mind of the user was already corrupted by our marketing team, right? So that's the kind of biases you need to remove from your research. Now, another thing you need to be aware of are implicit biases. Implicit biases are basically the things that you pre-assume about people before you meet them, right? So some people pre-assume, for instance, that women are worse drivers than men, right? So if, for instance, they see somebody driving badly on the road, and then they will be like, that must be a woman driving that car. That's an implicit bias. You've not met the person, you've never seen them before, and then when they cross the person and looks and it turns out to be a woman, they will be like, yes, I knew it. I knew it had to be a woman, right? So there are a lot of things that, we have this implicit bias about, and we need to. I will give you an example. Yesterday in the group, we were having this conversation about an app, right? It was about an app that helps, or a solution that helps people save money so that they can buy, pay for their rent and all of that. Someone said on the group that there is a design that does not appeal to poor people, or does not appeal to low income, all of that. I mean, I was really open to understanding how does it work, that a design appeals to a rich person and doesn't appeal to a poor person. I was really interested in trying to find out what exactly does design for low income people look like, and I'm actually still interested. I mean, I can't wait for that research to come out, but so implicit biases are things that we assume about people, and we've never really done any work to find out if that is true or not. Another thing about implicit biases is you assuming, for instance, that what somebody or somebody's body language, assuming the meaning of somebody's body language, right? I'll give you an instance. Although most of you, would already know, because Nigerians like watching Indian movies a lot. So but before that, growing up, I didn't really watch a lot of movies actually. I wasn't really watching a lot of movies. So my first exposure to an Indian person was in school. I studied medicine, by the way, in in People's Friendship University of Russia. So I met an Indian classmate of mine, Agnib Mukherjee. That was my first interaction, basically. And of course, I had a lot of, there's a good, a sizable Indian community in my school at the point. And when you are having conversations with them, sometimes you say something, they will agree with you, but they are shaking their head, right? They agree with you. So they agree with you, but the body language is them shaking their head, like as if they are saying no, right? So I actually struggle with that a lot because at first I was like, no, but this makes absolute sense. Like, why would this person disagree? But it's only after experience and after a lot of time that I now, figured that shaking head movement is actually more of a positive thing than is of a negative thing. So that, for instance, when they are shaking their head, it does not mean no. It means, okay, I think this might work, So in order to avoid biases like this, or in order to avoid mistakes like this, you may actually want to ask your user to explain or ask the person you are interviewing to explain what their body language means. Like if you see them making any body language, that's, of course, you need to capture body languages, right? In your research, you need to ask them what it means. Like, that you notice that they frown their face, or that they squeeze their face when you say something like that. What did that mean for them? So these are things that you need to find out so that you don't make assumptions and that are false. Right. So there is also this thing called social desirability bias. That is when your participant wants to give you an answer that they feel you are going to like, right? And it typically happens when your user knows what your bias is. So like they know what you want to hear, and then they want to tell you exactly what you want to hear. So you should be aware of this, and that is why you should never you should make the user understand, or the person you're interviewing understand, that there is no correct answer, there is no wrong answer. You just want to hear what they really feel about this, because if you don't do that, they will feel that maybe there is something that is the correct answer, and you'll be surprised. They also watch your own body language. So as you're watching your user's body language, they are also watching your body language. So maybe if, for instance, somebody that has worked, imagine your company has spent, half of their, founders, the money they raised on a particular technology, and then a user is telling them that they are never going to use that technology. That it doesn't appeal to them. Of course, like you as an emotional human being, your face is going to give off some, that it will pain you, it will pain you, right? So if your face gives out that it will pain you, be sure that your user knows, that what that means, right? And then maybe your user may not even correct it, say, but I will use it in some cases. So like, I may not use all that, but I can use it sometimes. And I know a lot of my friends that are going to use it. And then they will now try to start saying the things that they know that you want to hear to make you feel better. So that is social desirability, because people generally don't want to make other people feel bad, especially, if people that are, giving them money for research, right? So they don't want to make you feel bad. They imagine, for instance, that you design something the whole night and then you go to your mom and then your mom tells you it's trash, or she's never going to use it. Of course she's not. That's why your family and friends are not the best people to show your product, especially if they know it's your product, right? So yeah, that's social desirability bias. So in order to combat this, you want to, one, let the user know that there is no wrong answers. That the best thing that they can do for you is to tell you exactly what they are feeling, exactly what that they want. That any answer they give you is a perfect answer, and also try not to expose where your bias lies. With the user. Try to control your facial expression. Don't agree with anything, don't disagree with anything. Just let the user speak and be a neutral observer always, right? Then there is availability bias. So this availability bias is going to mostly affect you at the stage when you are recruiting your interviewees or users. Anibiet, am I still audible?
Yes, sir, you are still audible.
All right, great. So when you are recruiting interviewees, right, or users, right? So at this point, imagine that you are living at the upscale side of town. Let's say I'm living at Lekki, right? And then I want to create a product that the whole of Nigeria is going to use. And in creating that product, I only interview people that are living at Lekki, or I only research people that are living at Lekki. Well, at the end of the day, it's going to turn out that my product is only going to serve people at Lekki and not serve people that are living at Makoko or people that are living at Mushin or different parts of, or even people that are living at Kano, right? So in order for you to have a good, research or a good product, you have to go outside your circle to interview the people that the product is actually designed for and get them in a diverse population. Let's say if your product was supposed to be for people, okay, if your product is meant for people that are living in Lekki, there is nothing wrong with interviewing only people that are living in Lekki because that product is for people in Lekki, right? But if your product is for people in Nigeria, you have to interview, wide, make sure that your users can represents people that from all different parts of Nigeria, urban areas, rural areas, towns, villages, all parts of Nigeria. And of course, in gender also, in ethnicity and all of that, make sure that you get, a wide range of representation, when it comes to users. Otherwise, what you're going to get is what is called availability bias. It's called availability bias because it's like you only interview people that are available to you, right? As opposed to interviewing people that really represent your user group. Right. Then there is also something called primacy bias and recency bias. So primacy bias is what happens when you only remember the things that were said first, or you only remember the people that you interviewed first. Recency bias is when you only remember the people that you interviewed last. A lot of times, that's the way our brain works. So a lot of times, you only remember the first person you met, right? And then every other person, you forgot them. And then, or there is also a situation where you only remember the last person you met, and then you forget every other person, right? So in order to combat this, you need to find a way to record your interviews, right? So there are many ways you can record interviews. We'll talk about them later. But apart from that, sometimes you may want to do interviews together with your colleagues. But even if you don't have any colleagues at that point, yeah, and you're interviewing alone, you make sure that you capture, the interview. You can do video recording, audio recording, or you can, so video and audio recording is like a must. And then you also have notes, right, where you jot down things, that can maybe never be caught by audio or not be very well caught in video. So you also take notes as you are speaking with the user. That basically so I can remember essentially everything everybody says. Then in planning your interview, I think we've actually already started with this when I sent you, the documents, of what you need to go through. So you need to first understand your interview goals, right? So the goals of your interview at this time, that's the foundational research that you're supposed to do, is to basically understand, your user, understand, that problem that you say that they have. You really want to confirm if they really have it, or it was a figment of your imagination. Then you need to understand how bad the problem is for them, the kind of emotions it makes them feel. You need to realize that user research goes beyond just designing a product. It's also designing things like campaigns around that product. is also designing the way you talk about that product. Because at the end of the day, when you build a website for that your product, you are going to websites are designed to sell something, right? And in the copies, somebody asked what copies are. Copies are basically texts that are on a website, or text that are on a digital product. They are called, the technical name for text is copy. So the copy on your website or on your digital product is going to be reflective of the emotions of your user, or what you want your user to do. And the only way you can understand that is if you understand their emotions, right? So you need to, as part of your foundational research, try to understand the kind of emotions, that goes through a user when they are having that problem that they have. I'll give you an example. So let's say you are trying to sell a solar solution, or you have a product, a solar product. These days there are a lot of solar companies, that are trying to sell, solar solutions to electricity. So the way you sell that product to somebody that lives in Makoko is not the same way you sell that product to somebody that lives in Banana Island, right? I will explain. So somebody that lives in Makoko, their problems are different, right? So, and in order for you to understand the extent of this problem, you would need to really put yourself in the shoes of that person. And the way you can put yourself in the shoes of that person is by interviews, right? So what do you want to find out, right? You want to find out, because you've never lived at Makoko before, like some of you. Not everyone, not all of us have lived at Makoko before. I have not. But if I'm designing a product for somebody that lives at Makoko, I'm going to want to know, how they feel, when they are sleeping at night and there is no light, right? How do they really feel? All that night when, sweat is going to be drenching your pillow, your children are going to be waking up with heat rash. How does that make you feel, right? For somebody that is living in Banana Island, they don't have that experience. Their own experience is different. So they never, get to sleep and then their children have heat rash. So their own problem is just that it's expensive, right? So having to run the diesel generator all night is biting their pockets. And now they have to, instead of flying to Miami on holidays, they are now going to, remain in Nigeria, or maybe just go to Ghana, because they spent a significant amount of their money buying diesel. See, that's a different kind of problem. And when you are looking at these two user groups, if you come to the guy in Makoko and say, oh, you no longer have to spend money on diesel, burning diesel the whole night and, to turn on your air condition, the guy is going to be looking at you as if you're mad, right? But in order for you to win that Makoko guy over, you may need to speak in a different language or appeal to a different set of emotions, right? You may need to talk about, okay, so all those nights when your children are going to wake up with heat rash, or that you're going to, have to be listening to mosquitoes song every night, it's over, because now this is going to, provide you with electricity for you to run your fan or whatnot. You get, so the point is, you are marketing to different people, you are creating a product for different people. So you have to sound different. You have to sound like the people that you want to attract, right? So that is another thing that another thing you are trying to do. So it's not just a matter of it's not just a matter of trying to find out if they have this problem or they don't have this problem. You want to find out how their day goes by, when they are facing this problem. What emotions it brings in them as they are facing this problem. Again, because you're going to try to find out, the kind of behaviors, the users or people that have this problem, the kind of behaviors they have, maybe whether it's a behavior, of trying to solve the problem, or a behavior that is imposed on them by the problem. For instance, instead of sleeping early, they will now sleep very late because a lot of times they just, stay outside to take air. All of those things you need to, find out round and round and round, what that user is, what their life is in that problem that they are facing. Exactly. So these are general things you need to find out about, and it's not just an empty interview. It's an interview of trying to understand a human being and their whole lifestyle within that problem that they're trying to solve. Right. So in trying to get your users, you need to try to get your users that are representative to the problem you are solving. So for instance, if you're trying to solve a problem of people that are in rural areas not having access to physiotherapy, you may not want to be interviewing people in the urban area because they don't have that problem, right? So people in the urban area do not have that problem, so they cannot relate to that problem. Also, you may not want to be interviewing people that are 18 years old. What are they doing with that problem, right? So your survey needs to select for the group of people that you are designing for. So the person that wanted to design something for low and medium class people has no business interviewing people that are living in Banana Island, right? Or people that have already bought all the properties. I mean, that have no problem saving or have no problem, buying properties that they want to buy, right? And so on, right? So you need to, these are things that you need to consider when designing your screener survey. So the screener survey helps you select, is the survey that will help you select the people, that actually fits your interview. So that you know that if this person is going to actually be helpful for the data you want to collect or not. So you want to screen for age, depending on the product. You want to screen for the geographical location, urban area, rural area, Nigeria, US. If your product is for Nigerian people, you have no business interviewing people that are living in the US. The job title on the industry, if you're building a product for people in accounts, you have no business interviewing gatemen. So these are different people. And also gender, right? If you're designing a product for men, you have no business interviewing women, right? So the people that you're interviewing have to be representative of the problem that you're looking to solve. Right. So in order to find people that you can research, you need to, first you can look through your personal network. You can look through your existing user base. If it's a product that is already existing, we, for instance, at Wella Health, when we are doing research, a lot of times we go through our existing user base because there are a lot actually, and we can get, they are always easy to research. And when we're trying to improve a product, it makes sense to talk to people that are already using that product, right? And then you can also check online. You can, if you have like a survey, you can go online and say, ask for people to, whether they want to participate in your interview or not. So basically, whether they want to participate in your interview, this and this and this is what you are trying to build or trying to design, and then you want to, ask if they would like to participate in your interview. You can always go on the hallway testing, go basically to your church or wherever there is a group of people, and then you just start interviewing them. There are also third-party recruiting agencies for this, but they are typically expensive. So I don't know. I don't think that's for you at this point. Right. So when you've identified the people that you want to interview, you want to kind of course, introduce yourself. You want to explain the products that you are building, explain the goals of the research. Eventually you're going to give them a date, location, time. Sometimes it's going to be online. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be an online interview. And then you give them an estimated duration of the interview. Of course, it's always a range. You cannot say for sure. You can say maybe between 45 minutes and an hour, whatever. And then you have to give them a consent form that they are going to fill, to say that they consent to this interview, and then for you to use that interview to, build on whatever it is you're building. And then, of course, you're going to leave your contact details, right, for them. And for people, that are staying in Nigeria, like you also need to be aware of what because you're a user experience designer, right? So you need to also be aware that your user may have, I mean, imagine somebody just approaches you and tells you that, oh, they want to do an interview, a user interview, and then you have to come to this part of Ikeja and all of that, and you've never met that person before, in this age and time when they're kidnapping people. So these are things that you need to also think about, and try to provide whatever information is necessary, or whatever assurances is necessary to, make that person believe that they are safe. Of course, if you are doing an online interview, that may not be a problem. Right. So in drafting your interview questions, you need to be asking open-ended questions. This is interview, not survey. So in interviews, you're asking open-ended questions. You're keeping the question short and simple. Let the question not overstretch. Short and simple questions. And then always ask follow-up questions. Follow-up questions are, in fact, where the gold mine is. Because when the user says something, you need to understand why the user, what is the motivation of the user. And follow-up questions is going to be, how you get all that. Because you may not be able to predict how an interview flows. And if a user says something that is interesting, you want to dig in and get some insight out of it, right? So if a user, for instance, says that you ask them, if they would use, what they think about virtual reality, and then they'd be like, that is not something that they would use. You don't jump to the next question. You want to find out why, so why is it not something that you would use? And then they may be like, oh, that they feel that this is, you'll be surprised what the kind of things that people will say, right? So they may say that they believe that it's something that is spawned of the devil or something. You'll be surprised, right? But the point is that it's going to give you an insight about how to solve for that problem, or how to not solve for that problem, or why this is a good thing or why it's not a good thing, or how you can now design your approach considering what people believe about that problem. Right. So in conducting interviews, you want to, of course, try to understand the user's pain points, and of course, you want to interview real people. You don't want to use ChatGPT to generate interviews. A lot of people, there is these questions about whether or not UX design is going to be replaced by AI. And in my opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I believe that UX design is one of those very few, fields that is very unlikely to be replaced by AI, because there is just a lot of work that, goes into research that AI really cannot handle, and you cannot kind of generate user interviews. You have to actually interview users. You cannot generate, a lot of these things like, when you, with developers, for instance, you can just, put in a prompt and boom, the ChatGPT has developed a whole website for you. You cannot do that with user interviews. If you do that, of course you can do that, but the results you get will not reflect reality, right? So it's not going to be useful. And of course, you need to collect all the supplies that you need in order to, make this interview work. Research the users that are going to research users that are going to interview. So for instance, now, every user is not the same, right? So you may find that one of your users, apart from having a need for physiotherapy, they also have a need for psychotherapy, or they also have a need for visual, whatever. They have a visual impairment, or they have some sort of something extra about them that makes them a unique user. So you need to find that out, and then try to find out how that is going to, influence their experience, that is different from every other person, because that is going to make your design a lot more accessible to a more diverse range of people. Then, of course, you want to practice a lot, like, so that, you're not, your questions, even though you're going to carry your scripts with you, but you know your questions by heart and you know kind of what you want to get out of it. So you need to practice a lot. The more you practice, the less you are tongue-tied when you are talking to users. Right, so when you are conducting an interview, when you meet the user for the first time, whether it's online or offline, Anibias, am I still audible?
Yes, you
Hello?
are audible.
All right. So when you meet the user for the first time, you want to build rapport, basically talk to them, thank them for coming, crack a few jokes, break the ice, and then you gather relevant details about them, things like, the details that are relevant to the particular interview, right? So if, for instance, you are designing for, I keep referencing this designing for saving, right? So you want to gather details, about maybe their family size and stuff like that, things that really put them in that group, things that really make them medium and, low income earners and stuff like that. So relevant details. And then when you're conducting the interview, there are a couple of interview etiquettes, sorry. Of course, you need to speak properly, don't use certain words. You need to dress appropriately, dress for the role, for the interview. And then when you're asking questions, you ask open-ended questions because it's an interview and not a survey. Because you want to hear everything that they have in their mind, let them open up more. So when you're taking notes, mind you that you will also record every interview. So every interview is going to have either an audio recording or a video recording, right? So you record your interview. You can use your phone to record. You can buy a special recording device, but your phone can do the job anyway. Or you can use a video recorder. Mine, I actually use mostly audio. When I use audio, then I take notes of any body language changes and stuff like that. I use audio because audio does not take a lot of space, you get. But video actually is better in the terms of you getting, like, being able to capture those body languages and all of that. Audio also works, but just know what you need from it anyway. And basically observe the participants, record them, of course, with their consent. Always remember you have to collect their consent for this. So when you are ending the interview, you always want to give the user a chance to share their final thoughts. Of course, remember to thank them again. And if you have any incentives that you promised, if you promise to give them 1K or transport money or whatever, this is the time that you now give them whatever it is that you promised them. Right. So in documenting interviews, of course, it's important that you have a document of your interview because of what we talked about, the recency bias and the primacy bias. So when you're recording, so you need to record either, audio or video recording, or if you are doing online interview, you can do screen recording. For instance, this particular webinar is recorded, right? So you can do screen recording of the meeting. And then you have to have a proof of the permission that you collected from them, either that you send them a consent form to sign or whatever. And then when you are taking notes, you are jotting down the interesting quotes that they make, But if, again, when you are, if you are recording an interview, because after recording it, you still have to go back to it and then annotate. Or if you're lucky enough to have an app that can help you annotate. For instance, this discussion we are having now, I have an AI assistant here that can help me, give me an annotated version, like a scripted version of this our meeting, right? So if you have something like that as well, that really helps a lot. That is going to save you days. that is going to save you days of work, because there is a lot. I mean, every interview that was video or audio needs to be put in written form, because it's the written form that you can now use to, process your research and process the data that you get from the research. Right. Of course, you need, as you are interviewing the user, you'll be jotting down the follow-up questions that you want to ask them, so that you don't interrupt them, right? So, and you also want to remember, right? So if they say something, you allow them to continue talking while you jot down the follow-up question that you want to ask them, so that when they finish saying that thing that they want to say, you can now ask them that follow-up question. So it's actually a skill that you have to develop. It's not easy the first time. So you are going to develop that skill. Then, of course, you will always want to let the user understand that when you are typing, it's not being rude to them, that you actually want to, type exactly what they are saying so that you don't miss anything they say. That will make them understand that you're not being rude. Right. So after doing that, you have to create the interview transcripts. As I said, if you have an AI assistant, your AI assistant can provide transcripts. There are actually apps that can also convert audio to transcripts. You can always also try to look for those apps and use them. Right. And also you have to spend time going through the recordings yourself so that you can, because if you go through the recording, you will now, there are things that you cannot read when you are reading it. It's like you cannot read the emotion. You cannot read emotion, right? But when you listen to the tape again, you now understand the context and the emotion that they say that thing with, and then you know how to document that as well. Right. So that's the end of our theoretical parts of today's lecture. So your assignments, your group assignments, will be to conduct 5 user interviews this week. Conduct 5 user interviews. By now, you should have already drafted your questions. If you have not drafted your questions and you have any questions to ask me now, right? Raise up your hand and ask it now. But you would need these interview questions for your next week. All right, peace. I'm allowing you to talk. Please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. So I wanted to ask that I know for this week, we're conducting just 5 user interviews, but maybe we want to do like an actual design, not for just discuss. How are we going to determine like the sample size that we need and
right. Okay, so for interviews, right? I think in the first class we talked about this. What you want to do is you want to conduct as many interviews as you have to conduct before people start seeming like they're saying the same thing, right? So it's typically not a lot. It's typically about 10 interviews, 15 interviews at the most, right? But as you're talking to people, you start seeing that nobody subsequently is saying anything new. Everybody is saying something that somebody has said before. That's when you know that you have conducted enough interviews. So you conduct as many interviews as you have to conduct before all the answers to the questions start to converge. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Who was the next person? Who was the next person? Okay, Titi Lope, allowed to talk. Okay, go ahead, Titi.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. Am I audible enough, please?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you. My question, I don't even know if it's a question or a validation. During the course of the class, we were made to understand that when we okay, for instance, your user or the person you want to interview does not know much about the product, and then we had to avoid creating a bias. So how best is it to introduce them? Should we go ahead by stating problems or something like that?
Yes,
I don't know if it was mentioned or I was cut off that information.
You see what I was saying, right? That's why you have to focus on the problem, because if you focus on the solution, you also give your potential user a bias.
Yeah.
You don't have right now. You do not have a solution. If you have a solution, go to the barn and kill it, right?
Yes.
So that solution does not exist.
Yeah.
If you have a solution right now, go ahead.
So what I'm saying now is, how do we introduce our purpose, like the interview now?
All right. So you're going to tell the user that you want to okay, so basically you want to tell the user that you want to solve a problem that people that are going through XYZ or people that are have. Okay, let's say for instance, you notice that, okay, for these people that want to solve this savings problem, right? This savings problem, or trying to buy in bulk. I don't know if you remember the problem that we talked about on the group. That
for accommodation or something.
Exactly. So the person can, for instance, meet a user and say that that they are trying to help people. They are trying to help people save enough to buy their house, or save enough to buy their house. So in order to do that, they want to understand, they want to understand what those people are going through, and what problem they have in the course of them buy a house or do that. Yeah. So that way you've not presented any solution. So you've told them about the problem that you're out to solve, and you've not presented any solutions.
Okay. All right.
Is there any other person that has a question? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right then. So moving on. So people asked for that we maybe have like a break after the first section to give people time to exercise their mind and their legs before the second half of the class. So I'm going to give you guys a 5-minute break. How does that sound, Anivia?
Great. 5 minutes break. That's okay, sir.
You don't like me putting you on the spot, right? So 5 minutes is okay. So in 5 minutes, we are going to come back in 5 minutes and we finish up.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we need to stay on the call or drop and come back later?
If you want to stay on the call, stay on the call. The call is going to be open. If you don't want to stay on the call, yeah. Meanwhile, if anyone has a question, the person can still ask. I mean, it's an open mic at this point. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question because at team 2 we my specific number of questions, interview questions we are supposed to have, or it's like an open number, you can make 10, 15, or we have a
no, remember that an interview question, right? What you have is actually a guide. What you are taking, the script you are taking with you is actually a guide, to the questions you are going to ask. So yeah, I mean, I think 10 questions is okay, but you also need to think about the person you're interviewing, right? You don't want to hold them there for 2 hours, or even hold them there for more than 1 hour. So you want to make your interview between 30 to 45 minutes. You get what I mean, right? But you want to still ask all the questions that you need to ask, and ask all the follow-up questions that you need to ask. Typically, I think the longest interview I've had is like was like a 45-minute interview, and that is actually really rare. So yeah, I think so ask all the questions that you need to ask the most important ones. Find out basically all of that. I think I gave you a guide. The guide that I gave you kind of covered a lot, and it kind of covers everything I feel it should cover. So it's not just about the questions, it's not just about the problem itself, right? It's also about the environment of the user of the user group that you are that you are trying to solve a problem for. So it's not just about that problem immediately. It's also about the context in which that problem exists, the context in which the user exists inside that problem, and the emotions that are connected with that problem, the frustrations that are connected with that problem, and also, of course, what the user feels should be a best line of action in solving that problem. And maybe I actually had a mind of telling you, of opening up like what the next stage is, so that you see the need for all of this, right? So, but I'll just give you an instance, right? So, after doing this research, you are going to be building, you're going to be drafting something called an empathy map, right? An empathy map is basically a map that talks about what the user thinks, what the user says, what the user, feels. Basically, everything about the user's mental states. Notice that has nothing to do with the problem, but the user itself, right? Then you're also going to do this thing that is called the user journey map, right? User journey mapping is basically talking about how the user wakes up in the morning, goes through the problem that you're trying to solve for, and goes back to sleep. So it's basically trying to look at the problem in its whole context. Because when you're solving for a problem, that's why it actually doesn't make sense to come into this thing with a solution in mind, because you don't really know the problem enough. You don't know a problem. Imagine coming to solve electricity problem for people in Makoko, and you've never been to Makoko before. You would flop. 100% you flop, right? So you need to understand the context in which that user lives in, the emotion of that, the emotional connection and everything, in order for you to build a solution that would actually be effective. And it actually saves you a lot of money, because if you just imagine spend all your startup money or all your team's startup money to build a solution that you think is very good, and then it turns out to flop. So, it's less expensive, to find out, to do user research and understand who the user is, and solve for the user actually, and not for yourself. So I think maybe 3 more minutes. Yeah, 3 more minutes. Or let's just say, 3 more minutes. And then we start. Right. Can you guys, okay, you guys can jump on the canvas, by the way. Can use this opportunity to jump on the canvas. Or you can just remember where you are, actually. Just remember where you are. Don't jump on anything. You start just blocking my view. Don't jump on the canvas. Just remember where you are. So can you guys, please, can you guys see my canvas?
No.
Oh, okay. I must not be sharing this. I think, let me stop sharing. Right, Okay, that's it. Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
No, we still can't see it. Oh, I still can see it.
Can anyone else see it? Apparently not. Can anyone see it?
No, still no. I'm seeing the empathy
Yeah,
screen.
still see. Oh, okay.
Mommy.
I think. Should I stop sharing first? Okay, maybe I should stop sharing first. Then start sharing this. How about now?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Where are the Q&As? So I have like Q&As and I can't see them. Right, I think I'm okay. I think I might just continue. Maybe you answer if you have any question, just raise your hand. Maybe I think we'll just go that way. Right. Okay. So let's start. So today's class is going to be on vectors and working with objects on Figma. Right. So what are vectors? That's actually an interesting question. What are vectors? Right. So vector in graphic design, I think in order for you to understand it best, it's easier to explain it using something that is not a vector. So a pixel. So this artwork you're seeing here is built with pixels, right? And how you know is that if you zoom in close into it enough, you start seeing that it starts breaking down into blocks, right? So these blocks are called pixels. If you take it far, it will look like it's clear, but if you zoom in, it becomes blocks. So these blocks are called pixels. Vectors, on the other hand, are not made up of blocks. So if this thing now, if I zoom into this A, you can see that it remains sharp, I can zoom into it infinitely and it will remain sharp infinitely. So that is a vector as opposed to a pixel graphic, right? So that's what a vector is. So in Figma, I think this one should come first, right? I'll put this one before this one. I'll do it like that because I'll do it like that because it makes more sense, right? So there are different shapes that we can use in Figma. So the first we're going to look at are called ellipses, right? Ellipses are this circle, basically circles Ellipse is like a larger terminology to describe anything that is round, right? So whether it's circle or whether it's an oval, is an ellipse, right? If it's a perfect circle, is an ellipse. Is an oval, is an ellipse, right? So in order to draw an ellipse, you go to the ellipse tool and then you click and you drag. So if you want it, but if you want it to be a perfect ellipse, meaning that the length and width is equal, you hold shift when you are clicking and dragging. So it creates an ellipse, like an oval, basically. So let's see basically how that works. Like when you are working with an oval, you can see if you zoom in, as I zoom in here, a handle appears, right? So this handle, if I click in on it and drag, I break it into something, and then two more handles appear. If I take this one is basically still continuing that trend. This one is doing this, like it's emptying out the ellipse from the inside. Whereas this other one, is moving, the mouth of the ellipse around, essentially, right? So again, this one increases, basically sweeps it like this, yeah? Whereas this one moves it around, kind of changing the starting point, and this one empties it out like this, right? So that's what these handles are. I think I prefer to work with a perfect ellipse. Actually, you can actually just click. If you click, it will produce an ellipse that has dimensions of 100 by 100, if I'm not mistaken. And like any other, as with any other shape, you can edit it from the properties panel. So here, for instance, if I hold these constraint proportions, whenever I change this one will now change in proportion of changing this one. So if I make this one 500, automatically this one will also become 500, right? In that proportion. So I prefer working with this, right? See, the same thing, same thing, the same thing. Now, if I double click into it, you can see a lot of more handles come up. And there are a lot of things I can do. Okay, before I go there, still on the same three handles that it had, I can do things like so the sweep can be changed here. If you don't want to change the sweep here, you can change it from here. And now it's at 75%. Like if you want to do a design of battery 75% remaining or battery 40% remaining, whatever, you can change that from here. Here is the ratio. That's emptying out that we're talking about. You can see if you put it in, it changes there. If you want it at 0%, it becomes this. If you make it to 100%, it becomes literally a line. Or maybe it disappears. I just did Ctrl-Z to change that back. Right. So let's put back the ratio. Another thing here, so if I do this, and then I can go to this part that is called corner radius, and I can put a corner radius to it. Let's say like 20, and you see it has a corner radius now. If I want it to be even more round, I can do like 100, and then it becomes like a nice, perfect, and I can still continue doing what I'm doing, like all that extra stuff, it's still there, right? So if I double click in it, these other handles come up, right? Now, these other handles mean that, you can now change this thing into any shape that you want, distort it any way that you want. And as you're distorting it, you can see the handle starts coming up. You can push this one this way because it's a curve, actually. You can push this way. It's a Bezier curve. You can push it this way. You can push it, anyhow you want. Like it becomes a shape that you can handle anyhow. But once you've mishandled it like this, you can no longer handle it as an ellipse. Those ellipse handles just disappear. You can no longer handle it as an ellipse. It's just now a common vector. Right, that's an ellipse. Now, a rectangle, see how it works for a rectangle. So you go to the sense spot, you choose a rectangle, or you can just, use the letter R for a rectangle or O for an ellipse. So if you press the letter R, for instance, this crosshair appears. If I click it, a rectangle appears of 100 by 100. Of course, you can also stretch this rectangle, or you can use the shift button to make it a perfect square. And then it also has its own handles, but the handles here does something a bit different. You can see these handles appear, it does something a bit different. So if I click this one and drag, you can see that I'm changing the corner radius. Basically, the corner radius I'm changing. And I can actually do this to just one of these. I think I can just click, double click. Okay, sorry. Is it holding shift and doing it? So I think one of those things, control, command. Yeah, it's holding option. So if I hold option and drag, I can only do it to one of the angles. Although you can still do it here, you can see at the properties panel, you can see this has independent corners. I can click on it, and then this thing comes up. So I can now change the corners independently. So I can put the corner radius of 20 here. Sorry, why is it not coming up? Oh, that's small. Okay, sorry, let me make it more. Corner radius of 100. That looks more like it, right? And then it affects only that angle. I can also do here maybe 200 on this side, and so you can do that. Corner smoothing. Okay, this one is for iOS. Corner smoothing for iOS. That's interesting. Right, I think every other time Figma releases new updates, you can go and check out. All right, that's for rectangles, basically. Is there any other thing interesting about rectangles? I don't think so. And of course, like any other shape, you can always double click in it, and then these things come out, and then you can start, changing it however you like, and then basically, essentially, you can also use this curve to turn it into, a curve. And when you turn it into a curve, these things come out and all of that. Right. So for triangles, I think we have the same thing. So when you click the polygon, actually, every triangle is a polygon. So is a polygon. I think I even made a mistake of making triangle on polygon. So if you notice, the triangle is a bit different in the sense that it's not really, it looks as if it's not centralized, right? So the square, the border of the shape is not really in the center of the triangle. And there's a reason for that actually, because it's visually balanced like this, right? So if you look at like this shape kind of narrows from down to up. So the balance, in order to make it visually balanced, if for instance I'm supposed to like say put this in an icon box, it's more visually balanced like this than if it's right in the middle. Okay, maybe I should just show you exactly what I mean. So let's have an ellipse, and then let's have a rectangle, and then let's have a triangle. Polygon triangle. So if I put these things together, like this and like this, so it's actually more visually balanced than if I is more visually balanced for the rectangle to be a bit off center than if it's in the center. But it's something that is very subtle actually, that you start noticing where the more you start working with it. And like every other shape, they have handles. So this one, you can see it's saying tray count. By tray count is like 3 points here. If you pull it, it becomes 4 counts, 5 counts, it becomes a polygon. right? This is a polygon too. It cannot be 2 count because 2 counts will not make a polygon. And then this one is the border radius, the corner radius, right? Sorry. So the same way it can also have the corner radius. So that's basically all there is to it. Of course, like any other polygon, if you double click, it has handles that you can always pull around. But after pulling it, it is no longer a polygon that you can now treat like a polygon. Right. Then there is a star. A star is like a polygon that is inverted. So you have a star. Of course, the same thing. You can drag it anyhow you like. If you hold Shift, it becomes a perfect shape, and then you can. It still has handles. See what the handles do. This one does this, and then this one is also a count. You can make it 3. You can make it many, and then this one is also the corner radius. So you can see, you can imagine a lot of things that you can do with this already. Of course, like with any other shape, if you double click it, it shows you more handles that you can mess around with however you like. Right. So combining shapes. Okay, lines first. Lines. Let's talk about lines. So there are a couple of ways of making lines. So if you have a line, if you click and then you drag, click and drag. If you hold the shifts, watch this, watch the angles, right? By the angles, I mean here, this angle, if you watch it, if I hold shift and turn it around, it does in perfect 45-degree, 45-degree angles, right? Perfect 45-degree angles. And it can be useful depending on what you want to do with it. So there are a couple of ways that you can edit lines. For instance, here you can change the head to, let me change this one to 10 so that's 5 so that it's more visible. So you can change the head to this. There are also a lot of different, types of head there is to it. You can also change the tail, the other end. Why this change? Right. You can also change the tail to a couple of different things. Apart from that, you can also change, you can also change the stroke style from this to dash, and even customize it depending on what you want. So this custom now is 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. I change this one to 10 now, and you will notice that something changes, right? Then you can change the cap from sharp to a curve, even from, no cap to a square cap to a round cap. I think it is more noticeable if we have let me put another line. Let's say make it 8. So that line now, let's zoom in a bit to it. If I change the cap, to round, see what happens, right? Into square, see what happens. So that's, I think it is also useful depending on what you want to do. Also here, I think can also talk about these ones, and if you put a line, a border, add a stroke, you can also start treating the stroke that you put there as a line. So just like any other line, you can have it a dashed line with head or whatever. Yeah, you can do that as well. Let's see how this one is. Right. And this, you can also even put things like this area, you can change it. Okay. We'll notice it more if you are working with a square. Let's see, working with a rectangle. Put a stroke to it. Maybe make the stroke 8. And then we change this. Okay, that's the join. Nobody should change at this point. Okay, outside, it was inside, sorry. So this, you can see that it's changing now, right? So you can change the ends, what the ends look like. Yeah. That's the points at which they join. I think we could have even done the same here, just that this one was on the outside. On the inside, it was on the outside. You can see, you cannot appreciate the changes that we made. Okay, so combining shapes, right? In Figma, you can combine different shapes to make shapes that are more complex. So if I bring down this shape now, I can combine it with this shape in a couple of different interesting ways, right? So know that this shape, which one is on top now? How do I know? Let me change the color a bit. Okay, so this one is on top, this one is at the bottom, right? So if I want to combine this, I can add this. These are the combination, like they are Boolean, combination. They are Boolean combinations, right? So if I put a union selection, of course, you cannot have a union if they are different colors. So it automatically makes the color the same. So this is not the same shape, right? It's not the same shape. But the interesting thing about Figma, which is not the same with other editing apps, is that you can still go in here and then change the location of where each of these things are. You can see. And they are still the same shape. Like if you click out, they are still the same shape. But if you double click in, what double click in means is that you're working on. So this is now this union, right? So this union, I can name it weird, right? I can name it weird. But inside that weird, there is a polygon, and then there is a star. You can see it. So there is a polygon component and there is a star component. But if I hold this thing together and then I right click it and go to flatten, boom, you can see weird no longer has different shapes, and I can no longer mess with it. Like it's now the same shape, right? So yeah, depending on how you want to work, I think people use this to make logos and stuff. So you can combine different shapes to create things that are absolutely, different, Okay, so using color, I think we've actually talked about color in the last lesson, but repetition is the mother of learning. So the same thing, color, that you can also pick colors. Like if you see a color you like, you can use the pick tool and see the magnifying glass here. So it shows me exactly where I'm picking. I use the pick tool to pick it, and it becomes that. Like it collects the color in that pixel, and it becomes that. Then there is also fades. So you can use fades. And in that phase, there are different kind of gradients. So last lesson, we talked about linear gradient, but also gradients are radial gradients. So radial gradients, is like putting things as if it's looking like, like maybe you want to design something that like a globe or something like that. So it makes it look like the shadow. Basically, it makes it look like a three-dimensional object, yes. And then there's also angular, a bit sharper, but this one I think works better when you are dealing with a square. It works a bit better when you're dealing with shapes like this. Let me bring this one bring to front and then make it an angular. So you see how kind of it works. Basically, it's not as smooth. Like it makes it, in this case, see, it makes it look like a cone. Yes, makes it look like a cone. And if I still want to change this, I can go to the color and then move it around where I want. Yeah. So that's basically what you can do with different colors and gradients, and there's also diamond. For instance, this one, and change it to diamond fade, depending on what you want. And of course, you can always add colors in the middle, like we did in the last class. And if yes, I might say audible. And add colors in the middle. And if yes, am I audible? Who is my copilot?
Yes, you are.
All right. So you can put as many colors in the middle as you want, as many colors as your fantasy allows you to put there. Right. So that's what you can do with colors. Now, in the last class, we talked about blending modes. So I kind of wanted to show you a bit more what those blending modes entail. So what I've done is I've taken this and I've put it over this object behind. So you know what that object looks like. It's a duck, cartoon ground duck. And then I'm going to go to layer, and then so it's not at normal at this point. If I put it as pass through, see what it looks like. I think it works on some colors and not the others. And then darken, see what it looks like, multiply, you know, color burn, lighten, So there's just a lot of things you can do with all of that. Right. I think there is this thing that you can do with, let me show you. Although this is best done in apps like Photoshop, but you know, this app also does it pretty decently. Like say you want to put a logo, for instance, a logo on something. Let's go to, let me go and pick up, sorry, that's not what I'm looking for. Give me a second. Okay, let me get it. I want to get a picture of an object picture. Let's see of the town, for instance. Give me a second. I want to get an image I can work with. Okay, let's take this for instance. Copy and paste here. Sorry. Okay, can you guys see this can now? Anibia, can you see the can? Anibia, can you see the can? Am I talking to myself?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
All right. So if I bring this thing to the top, right? Bring to front, and if I place this thing like this, you can see it's not really convincing that this thing is like. If I want to make maybe like this Donald Duck like printed on this can like this, it's not convincing like this because if you see that the can like has all these like water droplets on it and all that, and you can't really. So what I can do here is that I can make this pass through, and I can make it an overlay. Okay, okay, still really not that convincing. Okay, let's try to find, I think multiply. Let's try to find what works. I think multiply works pretty well here, right? Right, it works well. Right? It now looks like it's printed, yes? It looks like it's printed now. It looks more convincing, right? Because now this water droplet is also on this Donald, and you know, a lot of other features are looking like it's now looking like this doc is actually printed on this. You can see. All right, so that's kind of what's overlaid. I mean, like what you can do, you know, using this blending mode. Right, I think we are done with this, and then we're going to go into drawing tools. I think it even makes sense to go. Okay, let's do drawing tools first before we talk about layer management. So, drawing tools we have on Figma, it's pencil and pen, right? So, pencil is just a pencil. It looks like a pencil, and it behaves like a pencil, really, right? You can just like freely draw around, right? There's nothing much to it. I think you can even change a couple of things about 100%. If it has a color. and check things that we can change about it. So Milta angle, let's see. Right, but the point is that like what this pencil tool does is like it gives you freedom, like to sketch, you know, whatever you want to sketch at whatever angle and all of that, right? It gives you freedom to really sketch at, you know. But a lot of times, you know, it lacks accuracy because you are using a mouse again. You're not using, you know, so that it's not really very accurate a lot of times when you're trying to maybe draw certain things. But it works when you're trying to sketch something very quickly. Maybe drawing a thin man or whatever. You can work for that. But the pen tool is actually the more, let's say, professional way of drawing things, although it's actually a lot more difficult to handle the pen tool. So the pen tool, like when you click and click, it becomes like, you know, like it kind of keeps like following you around, like in clicks, right? Click, 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 you know, click. It follows you around. Okay, you can even join this one. Start from here now and click, you know, click, 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 click. And if you're not, you know, if you've not used the graphic design app before, you won't understand the miracle that just happened here. Like we literally kind of joined two our vectors together, and we can actually deal with them separately. So this one now, like if I click into it, I can click this paint bucket, and then I can paint here, you know, choose the color that I want, and then I can also paint here, maybe choose a different color, or what, right? But this is something that is really like, it's impossible to do it in many other graphic design, you know, apps. But apart from that, another miracle of the pen tool is the click and drag, right? So if I want to, for instance, design curves, I can click here and drag, click here and drag. You see, drag and click here and drag, click here and join. It gives like click and drag gives like an ellipse. But then even with this one that I clicked only, I can still convert it to an ellipse by choosing this bending tool and then clicking into it. Sorry, clicking into it first, and then choosing this bending tool. And then the angles that I want to convert into curves, I can click on those angles, and those angles will automatically be converted into curves that I can now manipulate as curves. Now, manipulating something as curves is basically, you know, using these handles, right? Well, as you can see, as I'm pulling this one, the other one is pulling in the opposite direction. So I can, for instance, go to this mirror angle and length, and I can say no mirroring, so that when I'm now pulling this one, okay, it's still following me. Give me a second. Sorry. I literally said no mirroring. So why are you still mirroring? I actually really want to say no mirroring. Okay, so that when I, it's really weird. And now it's not mirroring and it doesn't have any this thing again. Okay, maybe it's because of the special kind of shape that we had there. Well, naturally, what we should do is that when I say no mirroring, it should stop mirroring the angle or the length or the angle and the length. Okay, let's try another let's try something else. So if we try to create a perfect circle, you can use, of course, the ellipse tool, but you can also use the pen tool. And the way to do that would be like to draw. So there is something else pen tool does that makes it a great tool. It kind of gives you guides. So if I click here and then maybe hold my shift, remember that 45 degrees thing, and then click here and then hold my shift again. Even if I don't hold the shift, it gives me it guides me, you see, that this is actually the point where this one meets this. So if I hold shift actually and then do this, it guides me actually. And then I can do that again, click and then join. And then I can grab my curve to my bend tool, and then I'll click on this bend, click on this bend, click on this bend, and then click on this bend, and boom, I've made a perfect circle. So actually working with pen tool is a bit okay, these ones are connected because I didn't release. So whenever you're working with a pen tool, like when you're done creating one shape, you actually have to release it and start creating another shape, or else both the shapes are going to be connected. So, but if you don't want them to be connected, you have to release. So after, for instance, creating one shape, sorry. Okay. After, for instance, creating one shape, you have to escape from it before creating a different shape. Right, so now so escape. Okay, so I think the reason is that it was not connected. That's why. Right, this one I can still connect it that way, and then it's connected now. Because if it's not connected, see what happens, right? If it's not connected, you cannot deal with it as a shape. You know, if you go to the properties panel, it will be showing you as a stroke. You cannot really feel it. You see, you cannot feel it. You feel it, nothing shows. Like change the color, you know, nothing shows, right? Nothing shows. But if you grab it, so you say it's showing pink here, but it's not showing pink here because this thing is, there is a hole in between. But if you join this, it becomes one shape, and then you can actually treat it as a shape. Right. What else? I think that's basically it. The pen tool just requires a lot of practice. You kind of have to practice a lot when you're, to understand how the pen tool works, and understand actually what works for you most. For me, a lot of times what I do is just, to work mostly with the click, and then when I'm done clicking, I can now go in and start putting curves where I want to put curves. You see. That is basically what works for me. But everyone kind of figures out what works for them. Sorry. Everyone figures out what works for them. Yeah, so I can do that for instance. And then I can go in with this shape and then this bend tool, and then kind of shape this a bit more and put it more curve on it. Yeah, I mean, it takes practice, yeah. So the more you practice, the better you get at it. That's essentially what is there. The more you practice, the better you get at it. Right. Okay. So I wanted us to practice a bit with some drawing on pen tool, and then let's try to draw something that looks like a smiley face, or let's try to combine all the information that we've learned here to draw something that looks like a smiley face. So that would be the ellipse. Start with an ellipse and then expand it. You can change the color to like yellow. Okay, maybe we want something that looks more like, yeah, something that looks more like a gradient. I want a linear gradient, I want a radial gradient. Then I want to be coming from there and going there. Right, and this, I actually want it to look more like a happy kind of, yeah, something like that. Something like this to give it more like a 3D look. And then I'm going to, how will I use to draw the eyes now? Let's see. Okay, I can still use an ellipse to draw the eyes. Perfect. I can group these to like combine, select both of them using shifts. Like click, you click one and then you hold shifts, you click the other one, and then Command G or Control G, it becomes a group. And then I can paint it. Oh, by the way, this group that I just created, I can name the group eyes, right? Eyes, you can see, and then it's made up of right eyes. And if I open it up here, it's made up of, let's say, that's the right eye now, or the left eye, and that one is the right eye. You should learn to always name your layers when you are working. It makes things for you very, very easy. And then this other ellipse, I'm going to name it head. Right. So this ellipse is the head. And then those ones are the eyes, the right eye, the left eye. Right. But what I want to do is that I want to make, okay. Okay, you know what? We'll come back to it later. And then let's have a nose. What is nose going to look like? Let's see, maybe a polygon. Yeah, I think a triangle. Triangle is not bad. We can let's see what the shadow is going to look like on this triangle. An angular shadow would make sense. Yeah, actually makes a lot of sense. So it's going to kind of do make like it's separating it from left to right, like that's kind of effects. Then we're going to use the same colors that we have here. So this is going to be the brighter one, and then this is going to be more like on this side. Yes. Can we do that? Okay, yeah, we can do that. And then we can put a shadow on this guy. Can go to effects. So by the way, let's name it. Let's name it nose, right? Before we forget. Right. And then we can come here on the effects and add a drop shadow. Right. So the drop shadow, say like, or I'll make it this. See what it looks like. Okay, maybe a shadow wasn't exactly what was going to work, but whatever. I don't think a shadow works best for this anyway. But I'm just flexing. But then the color here, for the shadow, I want to take a darker part of this, to make it the color, so it's not so obvious. And then I'm going to change this to maybe 30% or so, kind of to blow it out just a bit. And then I'm going to add the smile. For the smile, let's try to flex a bit of muscle of what we learned already. Let's use the ellipse tool and then make a circle, a bigger circle. And then let's go into the circle and open it up. Okay, this is not bad. Let's use this one and turn it around. Nice. And let's use this one and paint it out. Nice. Okay. Oh, but yes, let's also kind of put a reduce to it, so that let's paint it black. Yes, so that's our circle. Looking nice. Right, so we named this guy, we name it mouth. Sorry. That's the ellipse mouth. Right, so you can say mouth, nose, eye. I'm selecting everything now, and head. You can group it together and you can name it smiley, right? So that in layer management, if you now go to that smiley and put like, you get like open it up, you have the mouth, you have the nose, you have the eyes. Sometimes the eyes can even be like this, you can open it up further, left eye, right eye, and all of that. So that it makes sense because in Figma, layers that are similar are easier to manipulate similarly. Now, so if I have all these things together like this, layers that are similarly named will be easily manipulated similarly. So let's say if sometime in the future I decide that, oh my God, I wanted my mouth to be a different shape. What am I going to do? So if I click on the mouth, I'm now going to go to this icon here that says select matching layers. It's not selecting. What is happening today? Oh, this is ridiculous. What is going on? What's going on with my Abi? Is it because, okay, it's probably because I'm using a free version. All right. Anyway, I should have been able to edit this together as a matching layer. Well, aside that, there are other things that you could do. But the point is, like, if you have matching layer, it's easier to edit them together. But we're going to talk about it then when we are working with components. We're going to talk about it when we're working with components. But this is basically what layer management entails. So now we've basically learned how to edit vectors. We've learned how to use ellipses, rectangles. We've learned drawing tools, and we've learned how to change object layers. Of course, this object layers, you can actually switch the location, the position of the object layer. Like if this one is on top and this one is on the bottom, it kind of changes some things. Okay, for instance, if I have this object and let's say this is that color, let me duplicate it, okay, and this one is this color, let's say yellow, and then I group these two objects together, Command G or Control G. If I open this, you can see that this rectangle is on top of this rectangle, right? And that is why it's on top like this. But if I move it so that this one comes under, you can see it goes and hides behind that other one. And I can basically that's essentially what layers are about in layer management. Right, I think we've covered everything we have for this class. And yeah, so I'm going to send in your assignments later today. I'm actually really, really busy today, so maybe it may not even work, maybe be all the way tonight. But one assignment I would really, really like you to complete is the one I gave, I think on Thursday, the one of your interview questions. So let's work on that. And then later tonight, I'm going to send an assignment for both this and that. I think I'm going to software that a bit, or maybe not, because at the end of the day, the graded tests are essentially self-testing yourself. So they are kind of important for you to know that you kind of get the material. But I understand that you guys will have a lot of work to do. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of the interview questions and the interviewing. this you may think interviewing is a little work, but you find out. And then you will also have an assignment for these objects, basically working with objects on Figma. So I'm going to send assignments for the two later today. But meanwhile, work on your interview questions. And try to start, putting it up on the group so that I can correct. So what I'm going to do is when you put it on the group, I can give you advice on whether this question is like it would kind of give you what you want, or whether it will not give you what you want, and then yeah, we can have that conversation. But I'll put it up on the group so that you don't. I mean, I wouldn't like you to waste your week on an interview that will not give you the results that you need. So that's why you need to submit the questions so that I review the questions and ensure that the questions are actually going to give you the results that you need before you can go on and do this week's assignment, which is interviewing 5 people. So that's your group, interviewing 5 people. It will be best if everyone in the group interviews 2 people, so making it 6, and then I said at least 5. 6 is okay, 10 is okay, but at least 5 people. Right, okay. Have a nice weekend. Yeah, see you later. Any questions? Any questions? Let me stop sharing my screen so that I can go back. There is background noise. Okay. What was amazing again? I can't still remember what was amazing. Okay. So any questions? If you have any questions, please let me see your hands so that we can quickly sort it out. And, yeah. Are there any questions? Okay, no questions at this point. Okay, Aniviet, you can talk. Aniviet, you can talk. Okay, well, where was Aniviet? You wanted to talk. You can go on and talk now.
Please, my question is, who are we going to top our team? The problem we chose was online educators, and their students find it difficult to complete their coursework. How do we find the people that we are going to interview, please? Can you throw more light for us?
So the question is, whose problem are you trying to solve?
The problem of the online educators.
Who was your user was the online educator, but their own users are the students, right? So you want to interview the 2 groups. So you want to interview, so from the online educators, you want to interview them to understand the problem from their own perspective, how it makes them feel, and all of that, and what exactly the problem is. And then you also want to interview the students in order to find out, you guys are actually, you chose an important one because now you have 2 groups of people, right? You have 2 groups of users at least, because one group is the teachers that you're building for, whose problem you want to solve, and the second group is the students who are your users, right? So you want to solve your users' problem, and you want to solve your users' problem. That's what you get when you're trying to solve a B2B problem, like a business-to-business problem. So now you are no longer solving a problem for your customers. You're now solving a problem for your customers' customers. So now you are interviewing like 10 people. So 10 people, 5 people are going to be the teachers. The other 5 are going to be the students. But to make it easier on you, you can interview 3 on each side. So 3 teachers or 3 online educators and 3 and 3 students, like 3 students. So in fact, make it 10. Why not? I mean, because first of all, like everyone on this in the WhatsApp group is somebody that I can interview. So you don't have a problem of looking for who to interview, right? So you can interview people in this course, or anyone who has ever taken an online course. And then for teachers, I'm open, you can interview me. I can find you a couple of other people that you can interview who are willing to, you know. But now is another thing to schedule interviews. You find out that it's not that easy. But okay, you know what? Let's make it easier on you. Three teachers and 3 students. Yeah, I think that would be fair. So interview 3 teachers and then interview 3 students. I can volunteer to be one of your users. Is that okay?
That means the entire teacher is going to be the teachers and the...
Yes. Your interview, you have to create different interview questions. One interview question will target you teachers. Another set of interview questions will target students.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other question? Ifeanyi Jude, yeah, you can talk now.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, thank you for the lecture. Okay, please, I'm in team 11. That's that group that was asking about the whole savings app for those who want to pay for rent and mortgage and yeah, that stuff. So I thank you for your feedback. So the questions feedback were kind of a bit thrown us off guard. I didn't even know what to answer again, but I'm glad you gave this feedback. So how do we go about those interviews now? Because in the first one
Ifeanyi, I can't hear anything you're saying. Is it possible that you can type it on the chat?
Okay.
I can't hear anything you're saying. Just type it in the chat, or you can type it on the group, or you can send the voice notes on the group, on the WhatsApp group, and then I'll respond. Because I can't hear you just breaking a lot, yeah.
So, hold on, let me open my airport. Maybe my airport. Hold on, let me try. Hold on.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes. Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I was saying I'm in team 11, the team that was asking about the whole savings app for those who want to pay for rent and mortgage.
All right.
That's our problem, yeah. So I'm glad for your feedback and everything, although it was throwing us a bit off guard, but I'm glad for your feedback. So how do we go about our interview questions now? Because we're still having issues with the whole issue of like having our problem trying to get it all out there. So in a way, my team we are a bit confused because we don't know how to like maybe reframe it again. So now that you brought this whole interview stuff now, how do we go about our interviews? Because we want to solve an issue of users.
Do you want me to be honest with you? I will be honest with you. Do you want me to be honest with you?
Yes.
So in my honest opinion,
yes, sir.
The problem, in the first class, we talked about, not the first class, actually, I think it's second class already. We talked about when you're trying to solve a problem, that problem has to be underserved. The problem you're solving is not underserved. Okay. So if I wanted to save money to buy something, I could go to my bank, even if this thing doesn't exist. I could literally go to my bank, and my bank has solutions like that will allow me to fix money and not be able to touch it.
Okay.
That I want until it gets to a certain amount.
Okay.
Right. I think every bank has that product.
Okay.
Right. So you're trying to build a product in a product that's every bank has, and then some other these things are. So except you're trying to do something like spectacular that nobody has seen before, I really don't know how you're going to break through. We're trying to solve a problem that has anyone really told you, in your honest opinion, has anyone really told you that that their problem, the reason why they've not bought a house is because they don't know how to save, or they don't know how they are going to go about saving. I don't think anybody, personally, is my personal opinion, but then everything can be proved to be wrong, but I don't know it's a problem that anyone has. But of course, research was going to validate it or disprove it anyway. So if you had gone to research and asked people, so tell me about how you are going about this problem, they are going to tell you their mind, and their mind is probably going to be that they don't have the problem. but it's there for you to find out. And but what I was actually waiting for is, when you do find out, what are you going to do about it? When you find out the problem you're trying to solve is already solved, what are you going to do about it? You know, what you would have done then is to try to solve a problem for the same group of people. Since you want to solve a problem for the low and middle class people, you can try to solve a different problem. Like if you've targeted a group of users and you understood them a lot, like while interviewing them, you find out that, okay, so maybe this is not a problem they have, but they have a different kind of problem. And then you start, seeing if you can solve for that other different kind of problem. So I think the most important thing in interviews is basically, if you've zeroed in that this is the users that you want to solve a problem for, this is the users you want to help, you may find out that that problem you feel they don't have it, but they have a different problem. And then you can pivot to try to solve that other problem that they have. So that way, although, my own stance, call it whatever you want, I don't like solving problems for people that cannot pay for it. So low, middle class people are not people that can pay for problems, in my honest opinion, right? But then you can disagree with me, or you can find innovative ways of solving that problem, but then they may not be your direct customers. So you may be solving a problem, for instance, for poor people, but it's not the poor people paying for the problem. The people that are paying for the problem may be governments, maybe NGOs, but then the government becomes your customer. And then you try to find out, why would the government want to solve this problem? Do they want to win elections? Do they want people to like them? And then you try to solve the problem in a way that is going to benefit the government, because the government is the people that are going to pay you. But eventually, you're going to have to solve the problem for somebody that has the money to pay you for it. Except there is any other thing you're collecting from that person, because your business is not going to run on water. Does this help? Sorry, if Ifanye, does this help? Did I answer your question? Hello? Okay, all right. Okay, have a nice day, guys. I actually, I have stuff to attend to. It was nice chatting with you.
Okay. Hello?